Well, good morning and welcome back to the channel. If you followed my channel or the prior YouTube channel I had, you know that I have been pretty much shooting for a long time, whether that be still images, it would be video. I've used a variety of cameras. It's my first video camera that I used to record bands back in the day, whether they be rock bands, country and western. These performances were in backyard parties, various bars and clubs, campgrounds. Unfortunately, a lot of the footage that I had from back then got destroyed in a apartment fire back in 1995, so I only have very select footage left from that. Yeah, so as I look back on some of that old footage from back in the early 1990s, I think that was like right around 1994 or so. Sony Handycam 8mm VHS, no soundboard to plug into, just straight stage volume, no tripod. Could not even set up a tripod anywhere because the amount of people and kids just running around. Everything was shot handheld. Probably not the best footage, but those were the early days before cameras became good, before software became good. Basically, shooting everything handheld. But I've been thinking a lot about camera equipment lately. I have not shot professional video since the days of the Sony Handycam, which was an 8mm VHS. That's what I shot all my band footage with. Since that time, most of my video recordings have been either family trips, vlog style videos on this outdoor channel, those type of videos. And I've been using the Sony ZV-1 and also my GoPro. What I have in front of me today is this camera right here. This is my Nikon D3100, and I've been wondering whether or not I want to go ahead and upgrade. Actually, I probably do need to do an upgrade because this is a 14-year-old camera to me. Not sure the actual release date, but I got it back in 2010. It's 14 megapixel and it shoots 1080 video footage. If you go out and look up Kim Farmer and also my name, Scott Herview, on YouTube, you will see some coffee house videos that I've actually shot that I have done for a friend. Those were all done with the Nikon D3100. She was just 17. You know what I mean. And the way she looked was way beyond compare. So the world starts to getting you down, but people are just too much. Need to fail. So the thing with this camera is it does not have an external microphone port. Everything that was recorded with the internal microphone. And that's basically the sound you get out of it. I've also shot a video with an iPhone as well, and that was used for a long period of time. Green-eyed lady, ocean lady, soothing every raging wave. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to get this camera all charged up, and we're going to go out and we're going to shoot some other footage. It's going to be 1080p, it's not going to be 4K. And the reason why I've been thinking about camera equipment is, you know, I might want to get back into offering video services for people. So I've been thinking about camera upgrades and what I would upgrade to. Haven't made any decisions. I have lenses that are AFS, old F mount. A lot of them are crop sensor or APS-C or DX as Nikon calls them, which basically is the Hollywood standard to use APS-C in the Super 35 format. But I do need a body upgrade considering this is only 1080p. And if I'm going to go ahead and do an upgrade, I'm going to have to switch to all new lenses anyways. So I already know that this camera does take very good still photos, and I would continue to shoot with it today for still photos. You've seen out on my website the photos that I posted in the past, and a lot of people still commented on this day, but we're going to focus on the video qualities of one of these older cameras. So I got the battery all charged up, but because it had been power off so long, I had to go through and reset the date and time. If I go into movie settings and go under quality, you will see that this camera is only capable of 424p 24 frames per second, 720p 24 frames per second, 720p 25 frames per second, 720p 30 frames per second, and 1080p 24 frames per second. It's really going to be interesting to see what I can do with this. Now, I can tell you from the past when I shot a long time ago with this, that the lenses I have, the autofocus AFS lenses, are very slow. There's a lot of focus breathing, a lot of jumping around. Mind you, the lenses that I have are from 14 years ago. So they're back from 14 years ago. So they are slower autofocus. A lot of them are the f3 through f6 range. So I do have a variety of lenses, including specialty lenses like the manual focus Lens Baby that gives you all the weird photography. I think the lenses I'm going to try to shoot today, and I'm going to shoot this in manual focus. And the reason being is if I get another camera body and I buy an adapter, chances are the adapter, especially if I go with another brand like a Lumix or a Sony, adapters do not usually work with autofocus. I would have to stay with Nikon and use the FTZ adapter, but even then it's questionable on whether or not they would work on a third-party lens. Now it'll be quite interesting to see what the footage is going to look like shooting at 1080 at 24 frames per second, because the timeline I'm actually recording on is 30 frames per second. That's generally what I use for everything. I have not dropped down to 24 frames per second, and the reason behind that is my other cameras that I find have trouble actually focusing at 25 frames per second. The autofocus does a much better job at 30 frames per second. But if I'm going to get into shooting, you know, true cinema style, if I'm going to get into shooting professional, I will have to start shooting at 24 to 25 frames per second. So this camera is not even capable of slow motion. That's something you would have to do in post and hope the quality turns out good. So the lenses I've got in front of me today, I've got a wide variety. These are not the Lens Baby lenses I have. Those are very special use primarily for photography, so we're not going to use those. So I've got to pick and choose what lens I'm going to use today. So there's a lot of things that this camera does have, like face autofocus, uh, tracking, and other things. But we're not going to go through and actually play with those because of the fact most of those are photo related, they're not video related. The other thing is I am going to be doing manual focusing with this. And the reason being is the lenses that I have found that they do hunt a lot in autofocus mode when trying to shoot video. So if you move the camera at all, it'll be trying to refocus all the time, and it calls for a jumpy, blurry picture. So I'm going to be shooting in manual focus. The other reason why I want to do that is because of the fact that in the future, I may also consider getting cine lenses to improve my videos. So I'm playing around with the camera before actually going outside and shooting some B-roll with it. And I actually had to look up how to shoot video on this camera. It has been so long since I've shot video. Like I said, I mostly use this camera for stills. I absolutely love it for stills, but yet I'm revisiting the video aspect of it. So this camera here, you got to actually turn on live view and then hit the record button. So the live view actually uses the display on the back of the camera. It does not use the eyepiece. So you're recording video through the display on the back of the camera versus the eyepiece, which is the way most people shoot video nowadays anyway, so it's not really going to feel that different to me. So let's get outside. Let's see what this can do. It's a variable cloudy day today, so the sun's going to be poking in and out, although it is almost noontime, so it's high noon light. And we're just going to shoot some B-roll with the different lenses and see what it looks like. The camera has no log recording. You're pretty much stuck with whatever picture profile is actually baked into the camera as far as colors go. I will do a color grade on this to see what it looks like. So we're going to go ahead, go upstairs, get these color graded, and see what the footage actually looks like. So to be honest, I am not going to show all the footage that I shot with all the lenses, and the reason behind it is because of the bright daylight sun and not shooting at golden hour or blue hour, I could not see through the display at all. So the problem is I could not tell when these shots were in focus or when they were not. A lot of them, unfortunately, I did mess up the focusing, but I did like the quality of the lenses and how they shot, but it's just, so as far as focusing goes, no, I messed up a lot of that. Shooting at golden hour or blue hour might actually work better for that display. I tried hooking up the HDMI monitor to the back of it. Unfortunately, in photo mode, it does not give you a clean output. It shows you basically the settings of the camera. In video mode, it actually only shows what's recorded on the SD card. So there is no live view through the HDMI. So basically right now, I'm just looking at the quality of the lenses. So the next thing I did was I went ahead and used the lenses just to shoot some basic B-roll inside the house to see how it actually looked if I could properly focus through the display on the back. One of the lenses really surprised me with the autofocus though. It was the 10-24 Tamron. That thing seemed to focus very fast on the autofocus. was hoping to actually show you some more footage with testing the lenses, but New England does not want to decide what season it's in. We went from nice weather back to snow, rain, sleet, winter, and we also had a small earthquake. So yeah, it's been a really weird week. But I have gone through every single lens that I own for the Nikon D3100. The Nikon D3100 is still in brand new condition. It works absolutely great for still photography. Video, because of its age, is a little limiting, but it still works good for if you want to get some short B-roll or put it on a tripod and film some short segments. So of the lenses that I own, I've come up with a list that I'm going to actually sell with the D3100 camera, and I also come up with a set of lenses that I'm going to keep and convert over to whatever new camera I get, using a converter until I can afford to buy the native glass for it. I'm just going to start off by saying there's nothing wrong with these lenses. They're great for photography. They kind of have mixed quality for video. You got to know how to use them. Especially, I suggest using manual focus, because some of these, the autofocus is a little bit slower. But if you use manual focus and you do just right, they're going to do good with video. Even stuff I shot with 720p or stuff I shot in 1080 and put on a 4K timeline. So let's go over the list that I have here. The first set of lenses, these are the lenses that I am going to be selling with the system. This bottom row right here, as you can see, these are all Lens Baby lenses. These are for special photography. You can use them for video if you want to get some of the weird autofocus and artistic type stuff, but I've never really used these for the type of photography that I do. I mostly shoot landscapes, and I've shot some wildlife and other stuff. The Lens Babies are fun to use, but it's just not something that I use regularly, so those are going to be going. This first lens right here is the 18 to 55 kit lens that came with the camera. It's a good beginner lens and a good focal length to learn on. It's just, I have other lenses that I grabbed first. So this one here just ends up sitting in a bag as a backup. The next one is the 40mm macro. This is an awesome lens, especially if you do flower photography, if you do any type of macro on non-skittish insects, any type of product photography in the studio and everything. It's just a really great shop lens. The reason why I'm getting rid of it is truthfully because with the landscape photography I do, I have a 35mm lens that is just a little bit wider that I like. Not only that, I also own a couple other macro lenses. I own a 105 Sigma, and also my other lens that I'm going to talk about, which stays on my camera 90% of the time, also has macro capabilities. Although that one there is not a prime, it does great. So I like this lens, but it's just not one that I grab for any type of work, because like I said, I have two other macro lenses. And this one right here is the 55 to 300. This lens here I've used for landscape photography. I've used it for wildlife. I've used it for a bunch of other things. It's just lately with the videos that I shoot, I've really debated heavily about getting rid of this lens. It's just something that I put in my bag. I did use it a lot. It works great, excellent condition, but at the same time, it's not one of my first go-to lenses. I'm finding for what I do lately, I am mostly in the 17 to about 150 to 200 millimeter range for everything. For my travel, my landscape photography, I really don't shoot much wildlife anymore. Now, this big boy is something that I am really on the fence about. This is one that actually does not go on either list. It's not on the list to sell, and it's not on the list to keep. I keep going back and forth about this lens because it covers the focal length of the 55 to 300 that I normally shoot that lens at. It covers the focal length of some of the other lenses that I'm getting rid of, and also covers the focal length of the lenses that I'm keeping, plus provides extra focal length. This is the Sigma 170 to 500. Now, this lens here is kind of more on the vintage side of Nikon because of the fact it does have the aperture ring right here, so which means on my Nikon I got to set it all the way at 32 and then use the camera controls to back it off. So this one here, it's listed as a 5 to 6.3 is what it says, but it actually does go all the way up to 32. I've shot wildlife with this. This is a lens that I've learned to love. Definitely have to use it on a tripod because anything that focal length is going to be very, very shaky, although I have shot it handheld. The only thing that's bad about this lens per se is it does not have a motor inside the lens itself. It's one of Sigma's older lenses for the older Nikons where they used to put the motor inside the camera body, and it used to use the camera to autofocus. I did one time have a Nikon D80 and I used it in autofocus mode on that, which made this an awesome lens. So like I said, this lens right here is not on either list. It's not on the list of lens I'm keeping, and it's not on the list of lens that I'm getting rid of. It's something that's going to be debated for the future. Let's talk about the lenses that I am keeping. First and foremost is this baby right here. This is the Sigma 17270 f2.8 macro lens. This lens right here lives on my camera 90% of the time when I am out with my D3100. Most of the time I find myself shooting with this at around the 23mm range. It's a great focal range for everyday use, great travel lens. This lens comes with me everywhere. I've used this for landscapes. I've used it for a little bit of close-up wildlife. It's a macro lens, so I've used it for insect photography. I've used it for flower photography. I've used it for product photography. This is a real great lens to use. Now, Tamron does make a lens similar to this, and I have to keep reminding people that the Sigma lens exists. The difference between the two is the Tamron, from what I can find, does not have macro capability in it. It's just a 17 to 70 f2.8. Truthfully, given the two lenses, I have not tried the Tamron version, but I really love the Sigma, and I'd say try and test out the Sigma because of the fact that this has the macro capability. I absolutely love this lens. Sometimes when I go out, this is the only lens that I take with me. The next lens that I'm keeping is this one right here. This is a ultra wide 10 to 24 made by Tamron. It's a 3.5 to 4.5 variable aperture. What I found this lens is great for is doing real estate, especially if you're in a tight room, filming basically anything in a tight room, or if you're doing landscape and you need to capture like that real wide angle. It's a very snappy lens. It's just a focal length that I would not give up. Matter of fact, on most of the new camera systems, the widest that you could find is a 12 or a 16 for most lenses. Very rarely are you going to find something that goes all the way down to 10. And believe it or not, this really does not have the circular fisheye effect on it. So this is a lens that I really like. It's really get used a lot, especially if I was to get back into band photography where I want to capture the whole entire stage, or if I'm doing a studio shoot and it's a tight room and I want to capture the entire band. The next lens I'm keeping is, I mentioned this one earlier. This is the 35mm. 35mm is what Pretty much everything is shot at for Hollywood. Super 35 millimeter. Great lens to have. It is a prime, super sharp. I love it, and that's why I'm keeping it over the 40. The next one that I'm keeping, this right here, is the Nifty 50. You always got to have a 50 millimeter lens in your bag. 50 millimeter is one of those that will pretty much get you through most every situation. Doing mid-focal length landscapes, it's not too wide, it's not too narrow, not too telephoto. Great bokeh, great for portraits, although your 85 is going to be a little bit better, but it's great for portraits. It really suits a lot of needs. This is the first lens that most people get when they're upgrading from a kit lens, just because of the how versatile it is. Next lens I'm going to keep. This is my Tamron 18 to 200. I'll be quite honest with you. I went back and forth with this lens several times. It's a little bit on the softer side, so depending on what you're shooting, can be nice. It's actually very clear at 200. It does not have image stabilization, but yet I found the shake is really not there. It's a good lens to use when I don't need the 300 length. For me, for what I shoot, I actually like it over the 55 to 300. This is also another good everyday walk around lens if you're really going to be in different shooting scenarios, although this does not have macro. So 18 will get you the wide landscapes. 200 is a good telephoto length, because most of your lenses that people buy are going to be the 70 to 200. So this is actually covered in this. Although this one here is a f3.5 to 6.3. So you really have to watch your lighting conditions when you're out at the 200 end of it. But it's a very small, compact lens for what it offers. Right now it's at the 18, but if I go all the way up on to the 200, it really does not expand that far. So it's just a great versatile all-around lens. And last, this lens right here, like I said, I own a couple macro lenses. This is a dedicated Sigma 105 2.8 macro. Again, it's the older style with the aperture ring on it. So that means for the Nikon systems, if you don't have a motor in the body of your camera, this lens does not have a motor, so you will have to manually focus it. Nice thing about it is it does have the clutch right here to limit the focusing on it, and it does have the full to limited. I've shot many macro with this. It's a little bit on the heavier side, even though it is plastic. Very solid, old quality lens. So to wrap this up, and for a bottom line, I would say if you're just starting out in photography and you really want to learn, the D3100 is actually still available. Like I said, this is an older camera, but I've shot astrophotography on it. I did the Comet Neowise. I've shot landscapes. I've shot wildlife. I've shot a couple music videos on this. It's just a great camera. If you're looking to buy one brand new, you can still get them certain outlets, and I think also on Amazon for around the $400 range, $300 to $400 range. You can find them all day long on eBay as everybody is upgrading. Most people are selling the camera itself. They're not actually selling the camera with lenses. And also, once I do put mine up for sale, I have a handful of SD cards. Now with this camera, these little SD cards that I have ranging from 2 gigabyte all the way up to 16 gigabyte will last you all day each. So that's my wrap up, taking a look at my older camera and the upgrades that I'm thinking about, and we'll see you in the next video.